Good morning, guys. Hope you're all doing okay. Bruce is coming back this morning as he promised he would on his really interesting Norton Commando. This is quite a rare bike, so I'm really looking forward to hearing from Bruce all about his bike. Hi Bruce.
Hello Mike.
Welcome back. Oh, that looks and sounds great.
Whew, always an exhilarating ride.
I bet.
On the Norton.
I bet. Oh man, it looks so good, Bruce.
Well, thanks.
Thank you very much for coming back. I know you said you would. After coming on your BMW, you promised you'd come back, and here you are. So thank you very much for coming.
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's running pretty well, so I felt pretty confident in bringing it over today. It started first kick.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a stunning bike.
Well, what we have here, this is sort of my pride and joy. You know, if my house burns down, I'll get my wife and my dog out, but I'll probably go back in for this. This is a 1972 Norton 750 Commando. This is the Roadster model with the 2.7 gallon tank. This was built for me many years ago by Kenny Dreer, and Norton history lovers know Kenny as someone here in the Northwest who rebuilt bikes for many years, and then he almost single-handedly tried to revive the Norton brand. But when I met him in the mid-90s, I was shopping around for a British bike, and I wasn't seeing anything that I really liked. I was going to shows, going to motorcycle dealers and shops and stuff, and I kept hearing his name. So I sought him out at a show, and he had these just stunning looking bikes. And I was instantly drawn to his kind of aesthetics and his mechanical work, his attention to detail. So I went to visit him, and I thought I'd talk to him about building me a late 60s Triumph. I had a 68 Bonneville for many years, so I thought maybe he could do that. And he said, well, I'm building 3 Nortons right now on spec. If you want to put your name on one of these, it's about the same price. So I was stunned and elated, so put my money down. He built me a bike. A few months later, it was destroyed in a fire, along with 2 other bikes, which is a whole nother story I won't bore you with. This is version 2.0. As you've probably heard, Kenny purchased a bunch of engines and frames and parts for Nortons and other British bikes and set up a business called Vintage Rebuilds. That's what he was doing when I met him. This basically is kind of a mongrel. It's bits and pieces from all different kinds of bikes. The engine was originally registered in New Mexico. So he pulled that engine out for me. We picked a frame off the rafters in his shop. The frame got powder coated. The engine's been completely stripped down, blueprinted, completely came to me with 0 miles on it. We started pulling this together on a second attempt. So this is the result. Like I said, I liked Kenny's aesthetics. I liked the black fenders. Kind of makes the engine pop a little bit more. The color is actually Ford Motor Company color. I didn't really want black or red or yellow, the traditional Norton colors. I wanted something a little bit different. So I asked them to put black panels here so the Norton logo kind of stood out a little bit more. All this has been hand painted by Mitch Kim. I wanted a little bit of artwork on the tank to recognize Norton's racing heritage at the Isle of Man, and I also really liked the Norton advertising slogan, which they used for many years. So both of those appear on the tank. Kenny made several improvements to the bike. It has stainless steel braided lines. It's got a spin-on oil filter at the back of the crankcase. It's got a Boyer electronic ignition. All stainless steel spokes laced to Acron alloy rims. Stainless steel fasteners throughout. A slightly stronger connection for the swing arm. I liked this graphic rather than the traditional standard one, so I had that put on. The bike has 2 seats. This one is more comfortable, so I popped it on today. The other seat looks great, but is not as comfortable. It's got a little bum stop on it and some real pretty artwork, but for this morning's ride, I popped this on. It did come originally with Clubman bars and normal foot controls. But even though I'm not a big guy, I felt pretty crunched up. We put on rear set foot controls and then the European bars with just a slight rise, and the ergonomics are 1,000% better. It's really nicely set up. And then about 15 years ago, Kenny pulled off the amyl carbs and put on a pair of 35mm key-in flat slide carbs. So it's probably over-carbureted for what it is, but it pulls very strong. It's got plenty of power. Front brake works really well. Back brake, more of a suggestion. Doesn't really stop all that well, but the front brake does a great job. It's got a halogen headlamp. Everything else, you know, like I said, it's just bits and pieces that kind of came from various places, but I've had it 23 years now. I have 22,000 miles on it. It's really been, for the most part, trouble-free. No major problems. The typical kinds of things on a British bike with 22,000 miles. But otherwise, it's performed very, very well for me. I've, as I told Kenny, I've gotten miles and miles of smiles riding this bike. So it's been really fun. And when I'm through riding, I'll probably drain the fluids and put the bike in the living room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you stayed in touch with Kenny over the years then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still good friends. I communicated with him over the winter, had a discussion about whether or not to trade out these key-in carbs for maybe a single Mikuni. I've talked to George Krause about it as well. We figured if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's just leave it the way it is. Maybe sometime in the future I'll do that. But, you know, I'm only putting 1,000 miles a year on this. I have other bikes to ride, but I just thoroughly enjoy it.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's stunning. Is there any redesign work in this, or was this too early before it became American Norton and the resurgence of the Norton
It's
brand
too
as well?
early for that. This was built in, I think, the winter of '97, and it wasn't until the turn of the century that Kenny started focusing his efforts strictly on Norton. But when I first met him, he had, in his shops, he had Triumphs, BSAs, Nortons, Ducatis. He had a couple of Vincents I remember seeing there. So he was working on a lot of things, and I think that's maybe why he decided to narrow his focus and stay with Norton.
Incredible.
So there's nothing ultra new and modern about this. It's, you know, it's 70-year-old technology. It's not the smoothest ride in the world, but it's pretty nice, and under the right conditions, it's on the road conditions, it's just great.
But you have a good sense of where it was beginning to go, though, even with this bike, right? You can sort of like trace the lineage back almost to this, even though it's somewhat a distant relative.
Right.
This is sort of where it began then, isn't it?
Right.
In a workshop with disparate types of bikes that he was working on. Yeah.
Exactly. And my brother sent me an article from Auto Week magazine, I'm going to say around 95 or 96, and there was an article about Kenny in Auto Week. And the focus of the article was car collecting. Classic car collecting is becoming pretty expensive, but classic motorcycles are proving to be a pretty good investment and affordable for the average guy. And so when I saw this article and I realized, gee, this guy's right here in town, I'd really like to kind of go see him and talk to him. So I was, again, elated that he proposed a Norton for me. I never dreamed I'd get a Norton. I was ecstatic just to think about getting another Triumph, but this has just been a tremendous source of joy and fun for me. Besides, you know, I love the look of the bike, and I love all the visceral kind of feelings and emotions you get when you're riding and all that. This bike has, in a way, kind of changed my life. I've been riding for over 50 years, and for the first 25 years, it was a solitary interest. I didn't have any other friends who rode bikes. I was living in other parts of the country where the riding was so-so. But then I moved to Oregon in the early 90s, and when I got this, my life kind of changed. This became sort of a catalyst for me. It allowed me to meet a bunch of really interesting other people who share my interest and passion and who are a lot more knowledgeable than I am. Besides all the great roads here in Oregon, the people, I joined a couple of clubs, which I'm not typically a club joiner, and then it forced me to get another bike because I wanted to save this to a certain degree. So over the last 20 years, I've purchased some other bikes as more daily riders, Ducatis, Kawasaki's, now I have this BMW. And fortunately, my wife likes to ride, as you know, so she's got 2 bikes. So I'm riding way more now, partly because I'm retired, but I'm riding way more now than I did when I was younger. My interest is broader. My passion is more intense for motorcycles. So really this thing kind of boosted me up to another level in my life, and it's just brought me a ton of joy.
Are you sure you don't mind me trying to kick it?
No, not at all.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Keys on, fuel's on.
I haven't really got any boots on, so... Thanks very much for watching, guys. This has been another tale from the cul-de-sac. Please remember to subscribe and click the little bell and you'll get a notice whenever I release a new video, usually every Sunday morning and sometimes during the week.